At my son's funeral, his wife threw me out of my own house. I'm James Wilson. What happened next changed everything. Picture this. Your child just died. You're grieving, and your daughter-in-law looks you in the eye and says, "Stop crying, pack your bags, and get out of my house now." She called me a worthless burden in front of everyone at my son's funeral. But here's what Samantha didn't know. The house she was kicking me out of, I built it in 1987. The money she thought she inherited, $875,000, that was always mine. For 8 years, she lived off my generosity while treating me like charity. Instead of arguing, I just walked away. Sometimes silence is the most powerful response of all. If you're new here, hit subscribe. I share stories about standing up to disrespect. And trust me, you'll want to see how this ends because what Samantha discovered 3 days later taught both of us that assumptions can cost you everything. Let me start from the beginning. The signs were there from the beginning. I just chose to ignore them. When my son Michael died in that car accident 2 months ago, Samantha immediately took charge. "Don't worry about the arrangements, Jim," she said. "I'll handle everything." What she really meant was stay out of my way. At the funeral home, she made every decision, the casket, the flowers, even the music. When I suggested Michael's favorite song, the one we used to play when we built this house together in 1987, she cut me off. "That's too depressing," Samantha said. "We need something more uplifting." I watched her command the room in her $250 black dress, directing everyone like she was the director of this tragic play. And me, I sat in my old gray suit, the one I'd worn to my wife's funeral 2 years earlier, feeling invisible. The second sign came during the reception at our house. My house, technically, though, Samantha had been treating it like hers. Since Michael's death, she pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Jim, we need to talk about your situation." "My situation. You're financially dependent on us now. Michael was supporting you, and with him gone," she shrugged. "I can't carry that burden." Burden. That word hit harder than expected. "I've been more than generous letting you stay here," she continued. "But this house is mine now. Everything is mine. Michael left it all to me." I nodded slowly. Samantha saw that nod as defeat. What she didn't see was calculation. She had no idea that Michael had never owned this house. He lived here, yes. Grew up here, absolutely, but owned it never. She also didn't know about the filing cabinet in the basement, 4 drawers of meticulously organized financial records going back 40 years. The CPA and me never threw anything away. Most importantly, she didn't know about the trust. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The funeral guests saw what Samantha wanted them to see. A successful real estate agent taking charge during a family crisis. And an old man who couldn't handle his own affairs. They watched her shake hands and accept condolences like she was the head of the family now. Meanwhile, I sat quietly in Michael's old recliner, the one I'd bought him for his 16th birthday, and listened to her paint me as the dependent father-in-law. Jim's having a hard time adjusting. I heard her tell our neighbor Karen Smith, "The poor man doesn't understand finances." Michael handled everything for him. Karen shot me a sympathetic look. She'd known me for 37 years since the day I broke ground on this lot, but even she seemed to believe Samantha's version of reality. That's when I realized something important. People see what they expect to see. Samantha expected to see a grieving widower who couldn't manage on his own. So that's what she saw. The old Honda Civic I drove instead of something flashy. The simple clothes I wore instead of expensive suits. The quiet way I handled my grief instead of making a show of it. She mistook humility for helplessness, quiet for weak, generous for desperate. It was an understandable mistake. I'd spent 2 years since my wife Elizabeth's death living simply. No need for expensive toys or status symbols when you're learning to live alone. Michael understood that. He respected my choice to downsize my lifestyle. But Samantha, she measured worth by appearance, by volume, by who controlled the conversation. She was about to learn that the most dangerous person in any room is the one who doesn't need to prove anything. As the last guests left that Tuesday evening, Samantha cornered me by the front door. "I meant what I said, Jim. This arrangement isn't working anymore." I looked around the living room I'd painted 3 times over the decades. The hardwood floors I'd installed by hand. The crown molding I'd measured and cut with Michael when he was 12. "I understand," I said quietly. But Samantha had no idea what I understood, and she definitely had no idea what was coming next. Wednesday morning brought clarity and coffee in equal measure. I sat at my kitchen table, the one Elizabeth and I had bought at a garage sale in 1986, and made a list not of what I was losing, but of what Samantha thought she was gaining. The house, 2,400 square FT of memories on Oak Avenue in suburban Rivertown. Current market value, according to Samantha's own real estate expertise, $430,000. The life insurance, Michael's policy through his engineering firm, $155,000. Samantha had already started spending that money in her head, the furniture, everything from Elizabeth's antique china cabinet to Michael's collection of engineering textbooks. Not valuable to others, but priceless to me. My dignity watching Samantha parade around like she'd inherited a kingdom when she'd actually inherited nothing at all. But here's what really bothered me. It wasn't the money or even the house. It was the eraser. Samantha was systematically removing every trace of the life Elizabeth and I had built here. She'd already boxed up Elizabeth's photos from the mantel. Michael's childhood drawings were gone from the refrigerator. Even my old CPA certificates had disappeared from the den wall. I'm redecorating, she explained when I asked about Elizabeth's photos. Michael always said this place needed updating. Updating. As if 40 years of memories were outdated software. She gave me 30 days. 30 days to find somewhere else to live on what she assumed was Social Security and nothing else. 30 days to pack up 4 decades and pretend it never happened. The cruelest part, she was doing it all with such confidence, such certainty that she held all the cards. Tuesday afternoon, she'd handed me a printed timeline, actually printed it out like I was a tenant getting evicted. November 15th, she said, pointing to the date circled in red. That gives you time to find a nice senior community somewhere more appropriate for your situation. Your situation. There was that phrase again. I've already looked into a few places, she continued, pulling out brochures like she was doing me a favor. Pineview Retirement has openings. It's only $750 a month for a studio apartment. $750 a month? She expected me to spend my entire Social Security check on rent and somehow survive on nothing else. What about food, I asked. Transportation, medical bills? She shrugged. There are programs for people in your situation. Food stamps, Medicaid. The government takes care of senior citizens. The government, like I, was some charity case who'd never contributed anything to society. That's when I realized Samantha didn't just want me gone. She wanted me grateful for the opportunity to leave. She wanted me to thank her for 30 days instead of 0, to appreciate her generosity in not calling the police to have me removed immediately, to accept that this was simply how things worked now that Michael was gone. But Wednesday morning, sitting with my coffee and my list, I had a different realization. Samantha had made one critical assumption, that Michael owned everything she was claiming. She'd been married to him for 8 years. She'd lived in this house for 8 years. She'd probably never seen a deed or a mortgage statement or any document that proved ownership of anything. Why would Michael handled the finances just like his mother and I had taught him? The man takes care of the money. Old-fashioned maybe, but it worked for us. Except Michael had never actually handled my finances. He'd helped me around the house, sure. Brought groceries when I needed them, drove me to doctor appointments after Elizabeth died, but the money, the investments, the property, that was always mine to manage. Samantha saw Michael's helpfulness and assumed dependency. She saw my gratitude and assumed obligation. She saw 2 years of quiet grief and assumed defeat. If I said nothing, if I just packed my bags and shuffled off to Pineview Retirement like a good little senior citizen, what message would that send that bullies win? That volume beats truth. That if you're loud enough and confident enough, you can rewrite history and steal someone's life. That respect is optional when you're dealing with old people. That my 40 years of marriage to Elizabeth meant nothing. That the house we built together was just bricks and wood. That the son we raised here could be forgotten as easily as photos removed from a mantle. The stakes weren't just financial, they were existential. But I had something Samantha didn't know about, something that would change everything. I just needed to find the right moment to use it, and that moment was coming sooner than she thought. Thursday morning, Samantha let herself into my house with Michael's key. I was having breakfast when I heard the front door open. No knock, no good morning. She walked in like she owned the place, which in her mind she did. "Jim, we need to talk," she announced, marching into the kitchen with a manila folder under her arm. "About what, your finances?" She sat down across from me without being invited. "I've been thinking about your situation, and I need to understand exactly what Michael was covering for you." I took a sip of coffee, such as the utilities, the property taxes, the insurance. She opened her folder and pulled out a legal pad covered in her handwriting. "Michael never told me the exact amounts, but I need to know so I can budget properly." "Budget for what?" "For taking over those payments, obviously." She looked at me like I was slow. "Until you move out, I'll have to cover everything Michael was covering for you." I sat down my coffee cup. "And what exactly do you think Michael was covering everything? The mortgage, the taxes, the electric bill? You're on a fixed income, Jim. Social Security doesn't stretch that far. Is that what Michael told you?" Samantha's pen stopped moving. "What do you mean? I mean, did Michael specifically tell you he was paying my bills?" "He didn't have to tell me. It's obvious." She gestured around the kitchen. "How else could you afford to live here? This house is worth over $400,000. And how do you know what it's worth?" "I'm a real estate agent, Jim. I know property values in this neighborhood, but you've never seen the deed." The question hung in the air like smoke. Samantha's confident expression flickered for just a moment. "I don't need to see the deed. Michael inherited this house when your wife died." "Did he?" "Of course he did. Who else would get it?" I stood up slowly and walked to the sink, rinsing my coffee cup with deliberate care. "You know, Samantha, you've made a lot of assumptions about my finances. They're not assumptions. They're facts. Really." "What other facts do you have?" She consulted her legal pad. "Michael told me you never contributed a dime to this house." I turned around. "Is that what Michael told you?" "Yes." "Interesting. Because I built this house in 1987, paid cash for the lot. Hired the contractors, supervised every day of construction." Samantha's face tightened. "That was 37 years ago. Things change. Some things not ownership. Look, Jim, I know this is hard for you, losing Michael, having to face reality about your financial situation, but denial won't help." "What denial?" "Pretending you're not dependent on family charity." The word charity landed like a slap. I dried my hands on the dish towel, taking my time. "Samantha, let me ask you something." "What?" "In 8 years of marriage, did Michael ever show you a mortgage statement?" "We kept our finances separate." "Did he ever mention making house payments?" "We didn't discuss every detail of his expenses." "Did you ever see him write a check for property taxes?" Her silence was answer enough. "Here's what I think happened," I said, leaning against the counter. "Michael helped me around the house, picked up groceries, did some yard work, and you assumed that meant he was supporting me financially. Because that's what it looked like. Appearances can be deceiving." Samantha stood up, clearly frustrated. "Fine. Show me the deed. Then prove you own this house. I don't have to prove anything to you." "Yes, you do. Because I'm Michael's widow and I inherited everything. Did you stop answering questions with questions? Stop making assumptions." We stared at each other across the kitchen. Samantha's jaw was tight, her real estate agent composure cracking. "You have until November 15th, she said finally. "After that, I'm changing the locks." "We'll see about that." She gathered her papers and headed for the door. "We'll see about what?" But I just smiled and started loading the dishwasher. Some conversations are better finished with lawyers present. Friday afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went down to the basement. The basement had always been my sanctuary. Elizabeth used to joke that I was like a squirrel down there storing away every document and receipt, like they were acorns for winter. "You never know when you'll need proof of something," I'd tell her. She'd roll her eyes and remind me that normal people didn't keep 40 years of bank statements. But I wasn't normal people. I was a CPA who'd learned early that paper trails tell stories, and stories protect you when memories fail or people lie. The filing cabinet stood exactly where I'd left it, 4 drawers of meticulous organization, each drawer labeled by decade, each file folder labeled by category, each document filed chronologically. It was beautiful in its own way. I pulled out the bottom drawer first. 1980s, the decade that changed everything. Inside, I found the folder I was looking for. Real Estate, 447 Oak Avenue. Yes, 447. The house number Samantha thought she now owned. The first document was the original land purchase agreement, March 12, 1987. James Wilson buyer, $45,000 for the lot. The second document was the construction contract, Wilson & Sons Building Company. No relation to me, just a coincidence of names. $80,000 for a custom colonial. The third document was the most important. The original deed recorded March 15, 1987. Owner James Wilson. No cosigner, no joint ownership, no mortgage. I'd paid cash for everything. Samantha had no idea, of course. She'd been 4 years old in 1987, probably learning to tie her shoes while I was learning to read blueprints. But there was more in that folder. Much more. Insurance policies, property tax receipts, utility connection agreements, all in my name, all paid by me, all proving continuous ownership for 37 years. Michael's name appeared nowhere in any of these documents. I pulled out the second drawer. 1990s more the same. Property taxes paid annually by James Wilson. Insurance premiums paid quarterly by James Wilson. Even the landscaping receipts were in my name. The 2000s drawer told the same story, and the 2010s and the most recent file from 2024. But the real surprise was in the very back of the bottom drawer in a folder labeled Trust Documents Private. This was the folder Samantha definitely didn't know about. Inside were papers that would change everything. Documents that told a story she couldn't imagine. The first paper was a trust agreement dated June 15, 1985, before Michael was even born. The James and Elizabeth Wilson Family Trust. The second paper was a bank statement from State Bank. Current balance as of October 31, 2024, $860,000. The third paper was a list of trust beneficiaries. Michael's name was there, yes, but not as an inheritor. As a beneficiary during his lifetime with specific terms and conditions that Samantha had never bothered to ask about. The trust was complicated, the way these things always are. But the basic structure was simple. Elizabeth and I were the original trustees. After Elizabeth's death, I became the sole trustee. Michael received monthly allowances for education, housing assistance, and family support. But ownership that always remained with the trust, which meant it remained with me. Michael had lived comfortably because I made sure he lived comfortably. The engineering degree I helped pay for the wedding, I helped fund the various investments and opportunities that came his way. All of it flowed from this trust. All of it remained under my control. Samantha saw Michael's comfortable lifestyle and assumed he was independently wealthy. She saw his generosity toward me and assumed it came from his own earnings. She never imagined that the money flowing from Michael to me was actually my own money flowing back home. It's funny how assumptions work. You see what fits your expectations and ignore what doesn't. Samantha expected successful young couples to support their aging parents. So when she saw Michael helping me, she assumed dependency. She never considered the possibility that I was helping him. But there was one more document in that folder, one that would matter most when the time came for truth-telling. Michael's life insurance policy, $155,000, just like Samantha said. But the beneficiary wasn't Samantha. The beneficiary was the James and Elizabeth Wilson Family Trust, which meant the beneficiary was me. Samantha had been spending money that was never hers to begin with, making plans with resources that belonged to someone else, building a future on a foundation that didn't exist. I closed the filing cabinet and headed back upstairs. In the kitchen, I made myself a sandwich and thought about timing. Samantha had given me until November 15th to move out. Today was November 1st. That gave me exactly 2 weeks to decide how to handle this situation. I could call her right now, explain the truth, show her the documents, watch her world collapse in real time, or I could wait. Let her keep making assumptions. Let her dig the hole deeper. Let her learn the lesson the hard way. As I ate my sandwich, I remembered something my old business partner used to say. Jim, sometimes the best negotiation strategy is letting the other guy talk himself into a corner. Samantha was definitely talking herself into a corner. The question was, how deep did I want to let her dig before I stopped her? I looked around the kitchen. I'd designed 37 years ago. The cabinets I'd chosen, the countertops I'd installed, the windows I'd measured and ordered my house, my trust, my choice. Samantha was about to learn that respect isn't negotiable, but first she needed to finish digging. Sunday morning brought the worst of Samantha. I was getting ready for church when she arrived with 3 of her real estate agent friends. She'd invited them for what she called a consultation about the house's potential. I heard them before I saw them. Samantha's voice carrying through the front door. This place has incredible bones, but the decor is so outdated. Classic old person style, you know. They walked through my house like it was already theirs. "Oh my God, Samantha, this crown molding is gorgeous," said a blonde woman in expensive boots. "Original. From 1987, Samantha replied. "Jim built this place, but he has no eye for modern design. Look at this wallpaper and that furniture. It's like a museum." I stood at the top of the stairs, listening to them catalog my life's work like it was a garage sale. "The bones are definitely there," said another woman. "But you'll need to gut the kitchen. Those cabinets are so 80s. "Already planning on it," Samantha said. "Jim will be moving to a senior community soon, so I'll have full control over renovations. Full control over my kitchen. The one Elizabeth and I had planned together for 6 months." I came downstairs wearing my church clothes. 3 women I'd never met were standing in my living room taking photos. "Jim," Samantha's voice was artificially bright. "Perfect timing. I want you to meet some colleagues." She introduced them like I was a curiosity. "This is Jim Michaels' father. He's the original owner, but he's transitioning to a more suitable living situation. Transitioning like I was a job change. Mr. Wilson said, 'The blonde one, your house has such character. You must have put a lot of work into it.' 'Some,' I said. 'Samantha tells us you're moving to Pineview Retirement.' 'That's such a nice facility.' I looked at Samantha. 'Is that what I'm doing?' 'We discussed this, Jim. November 15th. Remember? I remember you discussing it?' An uncomfortable silence settled over the group. The real estate agents exchanged glances. 'Well,' said the blonde one, 'we should probably let you get to church.' Actually, Samantha said, 'Jim, while everyone's here, maybe you could tell them about the maintenance issues, the roof leak, the furnace problems.' There was no roof leak. The furnace was 2 years old. 'I'm not aware of any maintenance issues,' I said carefully. 'Jim, you know the upstairs bathroom faucet drips, and the basement gets damp in the spring. The faucet needs a 50-cent washer. The basement has been dry for 20 years. Samantha's smile tightened. 'Jim's very attached to this place. Sometimes he doesn't see problems that are obvious to others. Problems like what I asked, like the fact that you can't afford to maintain a house this size anymore.' The room went quiet. Even the real estate agents looked uncomfortable. 'Can't afford it?' I asked. 'Jim, we've been through this. Your Social Security barely covers basic living expenses. And you know this how, because I'm not blind. You drive a 15-year-old Honda, you shop with coupons. You haven't updated anything in this house since the Clinton administration.' One of the agents cleared her throat. 'Maybe we should reschedule this tour.' 'No, it's fine,' Samantha said. 'Jim understands this situation. He's had 2 years to adjust to reality since Elizabeth died.' 'What reality is that?' I asked. 'That you're a 70-year-old man on a fixed income who can't handle a 2,400 Freert house anymore. 70, 68, whatever. The point is you're making assumptions about my finances.' 'They're not assumptions, Jim. They're observations.' 'Observations about what?' 'About the fact that you've been living off Michael's generosity for 2 years, and now that Michael's gone, you need to face reality.' The words hung in the air like tear gas. The 3 real estate agents were actively looking for exits. 'Michael's generosity,' I repeated. 'Yes. Michael paid your property taxes. Michael covered your utilities. Michael made sure you had groceries and medical care.' 'Did he?' 'You know he did. And you know this because I was married to him. I saw him writing the checks.' 'What checks?' Samantha's face flushed. 'The checks for your expenses. Did you see him write checks to the county for property taxes? He handled those things online. Did you see him pay my electric bill? He transferred money to your account. Did you ever see bank statements showing these transfers? We kept our finances separate so you never actually saw any of these payments.' The blonde agent stepped forward. You know what, Samantha? This feels like a family discussion. Maybe we should give you some privacy. No, Samantha said sharply. This needs to be said, Jim. You cannot keep living in denial about your financial situation. What denial? The denial that you're anything other than a burden. The word echoed through the room. Even Samantha seemed surprised she'd said it out loud. A burden, I said quietly. I'm sorry, but yes, you're a burden. You have been since Elizabeth died. Michael was too kind to say it, but someone has to. Too kind to say what that supporting you was bankrupting him. Bankrupting him. Yes, the property taxes alone are $7,500 a year. Add utilities, maintenance, your medical expenses. She was building steam now, letting 2 months of frustration pour out. Michael spent $42,000 last year keeping you afloat. $42,000 at least. And now he's gone, and I'm supposed to pick up that burden. I have my own life to think about. The real estate agents were edging toward the door. So you're throwing me out, I said. I'm giving you a month to find appropriate housing. That's more generous than most people would be. Generous? Yes, generous. Because frankly, Jim, you never contributed anything to Michael's success. He built his own life, earned his own money, bought his own house. This house? Yes, this house. Michael inherited it from Elizabeth, and now I inherit it from Michael. That's how inheritance works. I nodded slowly. I see. Good. Finally, Samantha, what? You might want to check your facts before making statements like that in front of witnesses. She laughed. What facts, Jim? I'm a real estate professional. I know how property ownership works. Do you? Better than you do, apparently. I looked at the three women by the door. They were witnessing something they definitely hadn't signed up for. Ladies, I said you might want to ask Samantha to show you the deed to this house before you start planning renovations. Samantha's face went white. Jim, don't tell the truth. But I'd said enough. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people hang themselves with their own words. Enjoy your tour, I said, and headed for the front door. I had a lawyer to call. Monday morning, I sat in attorney Patricia Miller's office with 3 manila folders on the mahogany desk between us. Patricia Miller. No relation to my late wife. Just another one of life's small coincidences had been handling my legal affairs for 20 years. She knew exactly what those folders contained. Jim, she said, adjusting her reading glasses, I have to ask, are you sure you want to do this? I'm sure. Because once we start this process, there's no taking it back. Samantha will know everything. Good. Patricia opened the first folder. Let's review what we have. The original deed to 447 Oak Avenue lay on top. James Wilson, sole owner, recorded March 15, 1987. No cosigners, Patricia noted. No joint ownership, no mortgage. You paid cash for the land and construction. Correct. She opened the second folder. Property tax records for 37 years, all paid by you from your accounts. Correct. Insurance policies, utility bills, maintenance contracts, all in your name. Correct. She opened the third folder. And this is the big one. The James and Elizabeth Wilson Family Trust. The trust documents were thick, complex, full of legal language that took years to develop and decades to fund. Current balance. Patricia asked, though she already knew, $860,000 as of last Friday. And Michael's status in the trust. Beneficiary during his lifetime, never a trustee, never an owner. Patricia leaned back in her leather chair. Jim, this is a substantial estate. Samantha had no idea, none. And Michael never told her about the trust structure. Michael was a good son, but he wasn't detail-oriented about finances. He knew I helped him when he needed help. He probably never thought to explain where the money came from, so Samantha assumed that Michael was supporting me instead of the other way around. Patricia shook her head. It's understandable, I suppose. Young couples don't usually have trust this size backing them up. The irony is beautiful, I said. Samantha kicked me out of my own house using my own money to threaten me. How so Michael's life insurance, $155,000? She's been making plans with that money for 2 months. But the beneficiary is the trust, which means the beneficiary is me. Patricia pulled out a calculator. So let me make sure I understand. Samantha thinks she inherited a $430,000 house and $155,000 in life insurance. That's right. But actually, she inherited nothing. The house belongs to you, and the insurance money goes to your trust. That's right. And she's been treating you like a charity case while planning to spend nearly $600,000 that was never hers. That's right. Patricia was quiet for a moment, processing the situation. Jim, I have to ask, why did you let this go on for 2 months? Why didn't you correct her assumptions immediately? I thought about that Sunday morning scene, Samantha calling me a burden in front of strangers, the casual cruelty of it, because I wanted to see how far she'd go. And she went pretty far. Patricia nodded. What do you want to do now? I want to establish clear boundaries. Legal boundaries. All kinds of boundaries. She pulled out a legal pad. Talk to me first. I want the insurance claim processed immediately. The money belongs to the trust, not to Samantha. Done. That's straightforward. Second, I want Samantha served with formal notice that she's a tenant in my house, not an owner. Also straightforward. How much notice? 30 days. The same time frame she gave me. Patricia smiled slightly. Poetic justice. Third, I want her to understand exactly what Michael's relationship to the trust was, so she can't claim ignorance going forward. We can provide complete documentation. And fourth, I paused. I want witnesses present when we have this conversation. Witnesses. The same real estate agents who heard her call me a burden yesterday. They should hear the truth too. Patricia set down her pen. Jim, that feels like public humiliation. No public humiliation is what Samantha did to me. This is public education. There's a difference. Samantha humiliated me to make herself feel powerful. I'm educating people to prevent future misunderstandings. Patricia considered this. The real estate agents aren't necessary for the legal process, but they're necessary for the social process. Explain. Samantha spent 2 months telling people that I'm a broke old man living off family charity. Those people deserve to know the truth. And Samantha deserves to hear that truth in front of the same people she lied to. Exactly. Patricia made notes on her legal pad. When do you want to do this? Tomorrow? Give Samantha 24 hours to enjoy her assumptions, and if she refuses to meet, then we serve the papers without explanation and let her figure it out. Patricia pulled out her calendar. I can have everything ready by 10:00 a.m. tomorrow. Perfect. Where do you want to meet? Samantha's real estate office, where her colleagues can see what respect looks like. Patricia looked up from her calendar. Jim, I've been practicing law for 30 years. I've seen a lot of family disputes. This isn't about the money, is it? No, it's about the disrespect. It's about boundaries. Samantha needs to learn that you can't treat people badly just because you think they're powerless. And if she'd been respectful from the beginning, then we'd be having a different conversation. I would have explained the situation privately and helped her transition to independence. But she wasn't respectful. She was cruel. There's a difference between grief and cruelty. Patricia closed the folders. I'll make the calls this afternoon. Thank you, Jim. Yes. For what it's worth, I think Michael would be proud of how you're handling this. I stood up and shook her hand. Michael taught me something important. What's that? That quiet strength beats loud ignorance every time. He was a smart boy. He learned from the best teacher. Patricia number life. Life taught him that respect is earned, not inherited. As I left the law office, I thought about Samantha's timeline. She'd given me until November 15th to move out. Tomorrow was November 5th. She was about to learn that some deadlines cut both ways, and some assumptions cost more than you can afford to pay. The quiet man was about to speak up. And when quiet men finally speak, smart people listen. Samantha was about to find out exactly how smart she really was. Tuesday morning at 10:00 a.m., Patricia Miller and I walked into Elite Properties on Central Avenue. Samantha was at her desk showing house photos to a young couple. She looked up when we entered, and her face went from professional smile to confusion to something approaching alarm. Jim, what are you doing here? We need to talk, I said calmly, privately. The young couple looked between us, sensing tension. I'm with clients, Samantha said, her real estate agent composure kicking in. Can this wait? No, Patricia Miller said, stepping forward. I'm Patricia Miller, attorney at law. We need to discuss some urgent legal matters regarding your late husband's estate. The words attorney and legal matters had an immediate effect. The young couple exchanged glances. Maybe we should reschedule, the husband said. No, that's fine, Samantha said quickly. Jim, can you just wait in the conference room? I'll be right there. Actually, Patricia said, I think your colleagues should hear this too. Samantha's face went pale. My colleagues, the three ladies from Sunday. I believe they're planning renovations based on some assumptions that need to be corrected. Around the office, conversation slowed. Other agents pretended to work while clearly listening. Jim, what is this about? Samantha's voice had an edge now. It's about the house, I said simply. We already discussed the house. No, you discussed the house. I listened. Samantha's client couple was backing toward the door. We'll definitely call to reschedule, the wife said. Wait. Samantha called after them, but they were already gone. The blonde agent from Sunday Ashley, I think her name was, approached cautiously. Samantha, is everything okay? Everything's fine, Samantha said tightly. Jim's just having some difficulty accepting his new living situation. Actually, Patricia said, opening her briefcase, Jim's having difficulty accepting his old living situation. What does that mean? Patricia pulled out the first folder. It means we need to clarify some misconceptions about property ownership. There are no misconceptions, Samantha said. I inherited Michael's house. What house is that? Patricia asked. 447 Oak Avenue. And you have documentation of this inheritance. Michael's will. Michael's will left his personal property to you, yes. His car, his clothing, his personal effects, and his house. Michael didn't own a house. The words dropped into the office like stones into still water. Every conversation stopped. What do you mean he didn't own a house? Samantha asked. Patricia opened the folder and pulled out the deed. 47 Oak Avenue is owned by James Wilson, purchased March 15, 1987. No co-signers, no joint ownership, no mortgage. That's impossible. Here's the deed. Samantha snatched the paper and read it. Her face went from pale to white. This has to be wrong, she said. Michael inherited this house when Elizabeth died. Elizabeth Wilson owned no property. Patricia Miller said everything was purchased by James Wilson before their marriage, but Michael lived there his whole life as Jim's son in Jim's house. Ashley and the other agents were drawing closer now, fascinated despite themselves. I don't understand, Samantha said. Michael paid all the bills, the taxes, the utilities, everything. No, I said quietly. Michael helped me around the house. I paid all the bills. That's not true. Patricia pulled out the second folder. Property tax records for 37 years, all paid by James Wilson. Insurance policies, she continued pulling out papers all in James Wilson's name. Utility bills, bank records, maintenance contracts, all James Wilson. Samantha stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. This doesn't make sense, she said. Michael had money, good money. He was an engineer. Michael was comfortable because Jim made sure he was comfortable. Patricia said, what does that mean? Patricia pulled out the third folder. The James and Elizabeth Wilson Family Trust. Current balance, $860,000. The office was completely silent now. Michael was a beneficiary of the trust during his lifetime. Patricia continued. Jim provided financial support for Michael's education, his wedding, his various needs. You're saying Jim was supporting Michael. I'm saying Jim was supporting his son from his own resources. Samantha sank into her desk chair. But Michael told me he was helping Jim financially. Michael was helping Jim practically. Groceries, rides to appointments, yard work. Jim was helping Michael financially. The life insurance, Samantha said suddenly. Michael's life insurance. That's mine. Patricia pulled out another paper. The beneficiary of Michael's life insurance policy is the James and Elizabeth Wilson Family Trust. No? Yes, that money is mine. That money belongs to Jim. Samantha looked around the office. Every agent was staring at her. The woman who'd been so confident Sunday morning, so certain of her inheritance, so dismissive of the old man's protests. Jim, she said, her voice small now. I didn't know. You didn't ask. You could have told me. You could have asked respectfully. Patricia closed the folders. Samantha, you have 30 days to find alternative housing arrangements. 30 days. The same timeline you gave Jim. But where will I go? That's not Jim's concern anymore. Patricia said, you're a capable adult with a career. I'm sure you'll figure something out. Samantha looked at me with something I'd never seen from her before. Respect. Jim, I'm sorry. I made assumptions. Yes, you did. Can we work something out, some kind of arrangement? I considered the question around us. The real estate office was perfectly quiet. Samantha, respect isn't negotiable. It never was. I understand that now. Do you? Yes. Good. That's the first step toward earning it back. Patricia and I headed for the door. Jim, Samantha called after me. What happens now? I turned back. Now you learn what I've always known. What's that quiet people aren't weak people. We're just selective about when we use our voices. And with that, we left. The silence behind us spoke volumes. By Thursday morning, the entire story had spread through Rivertown's suburban real estate community like wildfire. I knew this because Karen Smith, my neighbor for 37 years, brought me coffee and the latest gossip. Jim, you should have seen Samantha at the grocery store yesterday, Karen said, settling into Elizabeth's old chair at my kitchen table. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. How so? Well, for starters, she was shopping in the clearance section. Samantha, who never bought anything that wasn't name brand. Karen stirred her coffee thoughtfully, and she was alone. Usually, she's got those real estate friends of hers trailing behind like she's some kind of celebrity. Maybe they were busy, or maybe they're keeping their distance now that the truth is out. Karen had always been perceptive about social dynamics. What truth is that, I asked, though I already knew? That she spent 2 months treating you like a charity case while planning to spend money that was never hers. Karen shook her head. People are talking Jim and not in a good way for Samantha. What are they saying? That she showed poor judgment, that she made assumptions about finances without doing her homework. And in real estate, homework matters exactly. Her broker called her in for a meeting yesterday afternoon. This was news to me. How do you know that? Because my sister's daughter works at Elite Properties. She said the whole office was buzzing about what happened Tuesday morning. Karen leaned forward conspiratorially. Apparently 3 different clients have already asked to be transferred to other agents. Why? Because if Samantha can't figure out who owns a house she's been living in for 8 years, how can she be trusted with their real estate transactions? I hadn't considered that angle, but it made sense. Real estate was built on trust and competence. Samantha had publicly demonstrated a lack of both. There's more, Karen continued. You know that young couple she was meeting with when you showed up vaguely? They posted about it on social media. Something about dodging a bullet with an agent who doesn't understand property law. They posted about it with photos of the office and everything. It's gotten hundreds of likes. The ripple effects were spreading faster than I'd anticipated. My phone rang. Patricia Miller, Jim, we have some developments, good or bad. Depends on your perspective. Samantha's attorney called this morning. She hired an attorney. Apparently he wanted to discuss a settlement. What kind of settlement? Samantha would like to stay in the house for 6 months instead of 30 days. She's offering to pay rent. How much rent? $2, $100 a month. I almost laughed. For a house worth $430,000, market rent would be closer to $3,200. Yes. What did you tell him that we'd consider reasonable offers? And what's reasonable? $3,600 a month, first and last month in advance, plus a security deposit equal to 1 month's rent. So $11,000 up front. Correct. If she wants to stay, she pays market rate like any other tenant. Can she afford that? That's not our problem. But her attorney seemed to think it might be challenging given her current circumstances. After I hung up, Karen was studying my face. Samantha wants to stay, she asked. She wants to pay below market rent to stay, and you said I said she can pay market rent like anyone else. Karen nodded approvingly. Fair is fair. Friday afternoon brought another visitor. Michael's old college friend, Brian Johnson. Jim. I owe you an apology, he said at my front door. For what? For believing Samantha's version of things. She told everyone that Michael was supporting you financially, and you believed her. I did. And I'm sorry, I should have known better. Brian shifted uncomfortably. The thing is, Michael always talked about how proud he was of your success, how you'd built this house, how you'd managed your investments, how you'd taught him about financial responsibility. So why did you believe Samantha? Because it fit what I expected to see. Old man, dead wife, grown son helping out. It seemed natural. Assumptions again. Yeah, and I'm not the only one. A lot of Michael's friends made the same assumption. And now we're all feeling pretty stupid and we're wondering what else Samantha might have misrepresented about Michael. That was an interesting development. Samantha's credibility was collapsing across multiple social circles. Saturday morning, Patricia Miller called with the final update. Samantha's attorney called back. She said she can't afford the rent, so she's moving out. She's moving out, but there's something else. What? She's also leaving Elite Properties voluntarily. Let's call it mutually agreed upon. So Samantha was losing her house and her job in the same week. Jim, I have to ask, do you feel bad about any of this? I looked around my kitchen, the one Elizabeth and I had designed together, the one Samantha had planned to gut and renovate. Patricia. Samantha made choices. She chose to be cruel instead of kind. She chose assumptions instead of questions. She chose to humiliate me in front of strangers. And now she's facing consequences, natural consequences. I didn't fire her from her job. Her clients did that by requesting other agents because they lost confidence in her judgment. Exactly. This isn't revenge. This is accountability. And Samantha. Samantha is learning that actions have consequences. It's a lesson she should have learned years ago. Sunday morning, I sat in church thinking about forgiveness and boundaries. They weren't opposite things. I realized they were complementary. I could forgive Samantha for her assumptions and still maintain boundaries about respect. I could forgive her cruelty and still expect her to face the natural consequences of her choices. Forgiveness didn't mean pretending nothing had happened. It meant accepting what had happened and moving forward with wisdom. Samantha was moving out next weekend, and I was moving forward with a new understanding of my own quiet power. Sometimes the best lesson you can teach someone is to let them teach themselves. 3 weeks later, I sat in my living room reading the Sunday paper when the doorbell rang. Samantha stood on my porch with a moving box in her hands. Hi, Jim. Samantha, I found some things that belong to you. Photo albums from when Michael was little. Some of Elizabeth's recipe cards. I opened the door wider. Come in. She set the box on the coffee table and looked around the room she'd planned to renovate. It looks the same, she said. Why would it look different? I don't know. I guess I thought you might change things after everything. Some things don't need changing. We sat in the quiet for a moment. Jim, I owe you more than an apology. You don't owe me anything. Yes, I do. I treated you terribly. I made assumptions about your life, your finances, your worth. I was cruel when I should have been grateful. And now I understand something I should have understood from the beginning. What's that? That Michael learned his values from someone. His kindness, his generosity, his quiet strength. He learned all of that from you. I nodded. Michael was a good son. He was. And you were a good father. I just couldn't see it because I was too busy making assumptions. We all make assumptions, Samantha. The question is what we do when we learn we're wrong. I'm trying to learn from this. Good. I found a job in Springfield. Fresh start, new city. Maybe I can do better there. I hope you can. She stood to leave, then turned back. Jim, can I ask you something? Of course. If I'd been respectful from the beginning, if I'd asked questions instead of making demands, would things have been different? I thought about that. Probably. I would have helped you transition to independence, given you time to find your feet. We might have found a way to honor Michael's memory together instead of fighting over it. Samantha picked up her purse. I guess respect really isn't negotiable, is it? No, it's not. Thank you for teaching me that. After she left, I opened the box. She'd brought Michael's baby pictures, Elizabeth's handwritten recipes, small treasures that had somehow ended up in the wrong hands. I thought about the past 3 months, the funeral, the confrontation, the legal resolution, the natural consequences. Samantha had learned an expensive lesson about assumptions and respect. But I'd learned something too. I'd learned that quiet strength doesn't mean silent acceptance of disrespect. I'd learned that boundaries aren't walls, they're guidelines for healthy relationships. Most importantly, I'd learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply tell the truth and let people deal with the consequences of their own choices. Michael would have been proud of that lesson. Elizabeth would have approved of the quiet way I'd handled it. And me, I was at peace. If you're watching this and you've ever been underestimated because of your age, your quiet nature, or your humble lifestyle, let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to remind someone that respect isn't inherited? It's earned. Sometimes the best response to disrespect is simply proving them wrong. And sometimes the most powerful people in the room are the ones who don't need to prove anything at all. Until next time, remember, quiet doesn't mean weak. It just means selective.